Okay, just waiting for Councillor Braithwaite to turn on video. Looks like she's coming on now, so I'm ready to call the meeting to order. The time is now 7:03. Welcome everyone, as we call it, this meeting to order. Some of us are sitting in, I should probably turn on a different background, sitting in strange parts of our house as we try and stay cool through this meeting. Wherever we are and however hot we are, we just want to acknowledge that we're gathering on the traditional territories of the Coast and Strait Salish people, specifically the Lekwungen speaking people, known today as the Songhees and the Esquimalt First Nations, and that their historic connections to these lands continue to this day. Up first, we just have approval of the agenda for our regular council meeting. Moved, and is there a seconder? Seconded, thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? None opposed, thank you. We move on to item number 3.1, regular council minutes of June 14th. If we can get a mover and a seconder to approve, we will then take any moves and seconded. Thank you. Are there any corrections, additions, changes to those? Not seeing any. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Not opposed. And then we have just receipt of the committee minutes, item 4.1 for the committee of the whole meeting of May 17th. Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Thank you very much. Moving on to mayor's remarks. I just want to start off on a bit of a sad note, just recognizing the passing of a couple of real community leaders. First, Clarence Dick Jr., who was a master carver, also known by his traditional name of Wooshk. Clarence was very proud of his Lekwungen and Kwakwak roots and was gifted traditional artist and carver. You probably know him either personally or through his work. They include things like the Spirit Square at Victoria City Hall, the Welcome Post and the Songhees Wellness Center. But of course, here in Oak Bay, he carved the Snowyeth pole at Oak Bay High School. So he passed away at a very young age this week, and so did the Colwood Fire Chief Cassidy. A real shock to lose him. He was a real community leader, certainly very visible and prominent in the West Shore, but well respected all across this region. So two very young men who have given a lot and contributed a lot to our communities, and just wanted to recognize them. Also just want to celebrate Pride Week, though. This is the start of Pride Week. We have the flag flying at City Hall, and it's good for us to take that moment of celebration as well. I want to just congratulate guest council and staff. We just recently received the Canadian Award for Financial Reporting for our 2019 annual report. We're dealing with our 2020 annual report today. But that's the Government Finance Officers Association recognized with this award, going above and beyond the requirements and making an extra effort to make financial and operational information clear to communities. Always an ongoing work to keep making things better, but it's always nice to see that when hard work is undertaken, that it's rewarded and recognized in this way as well. And last but not least, I just want to remind everybody that this is the last week for taxes. They're due this week. So if you haven't paid your property taxes yet and you're watching this, make sure you get them in before the end of the week. That's it for my remarks. So on to item number 6.1. We have that annual report, and we have Ms. Williams, our Director of Corporate Services, to provide the introduction. Welcome, Ms. Williams.
Thank you, Mayor Murdoch. As noted in the small report, the 2-page report attached to the agenda, all municipalities in British Columbia are required to present an annual report at a public meeting prior to June 30th each year. So the report has to be available for public inspection, and that has to happen for at least 14 days prior to the meeting, which is this meeting. And at the meeting, council must provide the public an opportunity to submit comments or ask questions about the report. So the report is before you today in accordance with those requirements. The district's annual report is one piece in a suite of documents that were developed in 2019. And they were, at that time, they were known as the Transparency and Accountability Project. So this council-directed project focused on increasing transparency and accountability to stakeholders. The 5-year financial plan and the corporate plan are two other documents that fill out that suite. And the corporate plan is the next item you'll deal with on the agenda. I would be absolutely remiss if I didn't mention that the suite of documents that I just referred to was considered by UBCM in 2020 for a Community of Excellence Award in Governance. And the district finished as one of the top 3 finalists in that consideration. So when you factor in how young this project is, this is a 2019 project, that's a significant achievement and one that Oak Bay can be very proud of. Another important achievement was made during 2020, during 2020, when the 2019 annual report received the award the mayor just recently spoke about. That was the first time in Oak Bay's history that we had received that report. Staff believes that the report before you continues to conform to the requirements of that program, and we will be submitting this report for consideration for another award this year. So the purpose of the annual report, as defined in the charter, is to look back at the prior year and report out on how we performed in relation to how we said we were going to perform. The charter also requires us to cast our eyes forward into the coming year through a statement of municipal objectives and measures. And those objectives and measures will be used to determine progress for the current and next year. So in 2019, Council's priorities and the metrics that Council established were added to the annual report to fulfill this latter requirement, this casting forward requirement. And they continue in the report that's before you this evening. So although the report is prepared by Corporate Services, it is the result of collaboration across all departments in the organization. You will recognize as pieces that are lifted from Council's corporate plan, as well as from the financial plan and the SOFI reporting tools. In addition to that, you'll notice that we have sections dedicated to each department where prior year achievements, current year plans, and upcoming initiatives are outlined, as well as interesting statistics from each respective area. So the annual report is one of the tools Council has available to communicate to current and future residents and businesses of how the district and each department within the district performs in regard to established objectives and measures. And so with that, and in accordance with the charter, staff is pleased to present this report to you this evening for your consideration. We have representatives from each of the departments available to answer any questions that you may have. And I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Williams. Appreciate that. I think I often used to think of the annual report as a financial report and used to be presented by the financial officer, but it is so much more than that, especially now that we've incorporated all these other pieces in here. So appreciate that presentation. And I'll turn it over to, first we'll go to members of council, but also, and then after that, if there's any members of the public who wish to address council or ask questions, may also do so at this time. Thank you for putting the phone number and the mechanism up there for people to see at home. Very much appreciated. But I will now go to council for questions first. I have Councillor Braithwaite, then Patterson.
Thank you very much, Mayor. I thank you very much for this report. I read it with interest from cover to cover, and was really interested in some of the numbers on under the different areas. So I thought perhaps I might ask a couple of questions on those numbers. The first one was on page 37 of the document, and it was under information technology, and it talked about support tickets, and it went from 1,281 up from 710. So I'm thinking that would have been because people were working from home, and so there would have been more support tickets. And I'm wondering if we could have a comment on that.
Sure, and probably that goes to Mr. Payne. I'm thinking that would be the right department.
Yes, Your Worship, and through you to Councillor Braithwaite, that's exactly right. We also transitioned last year by implementing Office 365 across the organization, as well as a significant output for our PC replacement plan. So those three factors, I would say, contributed greatly to the support ticket rise.
Thank you. And if I might continue, Mayor. And then under the police on page 42, there was, some increase in mischief. There was an increase in bylaw infractions by about 100. From 131 to 241. What I found interesting was that we had false alarms went down from 158 from 305. So was that Can we talk perhaps with the police chief about how that affected their department?
Yes, I don't have a complete list here. Is Chief
Oh,
here with us tonight? I don't see him attending. here.
if not, no worries.
Yeah, my
I mean,
apologies. And I can't answer it either, but I probably should have that stuff memorized, but I do not.
Yeah,
So
that's okay.
A long time ago.
The fire department, one thing I did notice, I mean, they, again, all their numbers were obviously because of COVID, but one thing I did notice in their numbers was that their response for assistance to UVic stayed really consistent, which I thought was really interesting. When all of the other numbers went down, that one stayed really consistent. So, and then the only other thing I wanted to comment on was for engineering and public works. It was great to see that that they had such an increase in some of the projects that they were doing. 57 catch basins were replaced as compared to whatever the number was for the year before. And for curb drops, it was they had 29 curb drops or 22 curb drops out of as compared to 16 from the year before. So in the catch basements, I think it was they replaced 57, I think, something like that. So just really congratulations to all the departments. I know that Parks, Rec and Culture, also their film productions, we went up to 11 film productions from 7 the year prior. So that was really interesting as well in a year of COVID. So thank you to all the departments.
Thank you, Councillor Braithwaite. Councillor Patterson.
Get unmuted here. It's a different screen than the last one we were on. Thank you. And yes, I also thank Ms. Williams for her remarks on this. Just one clarification. I'm wondering from staff, I know, of course, the documents are all available on the district's website, which has been greatly enhanced over the last couple of years. Was the material also available in printed formats for any members of the community that perhaps did not have access to the digital versions?
Thank you, Councillor Patterson.
Through you, Mayor Murdoch, and thank you, Councillor Patterson. Yes, we did make the public aware that if they wanted to view it in printed format, they could contact us and we would print it for them or make an appointment to come in and view at Municipal Hall.
Great, that's good to know, because there are some, I know certainly the computers used to get so much use at the library and they're not there now. So for the people, so I just wanted confirmation that it was available to all members of the community. Like Councillor Braithwaite, I also would like to acknowledge that 2020 was a challenging year for the entire organization and for our residents. And page 32 does summarize some of the operations of the EOC. So it summarizes some, but not all of the COVID-19 challenges. And I just would like our staff to know that your work was appreciated by council and by residents in the district. It probably warranted a report in itself, but that would have made this even longer. And so that will lead to my next comment, if I may continue, Mayor.
Go ahead. I would just point out that we're still in the pandemic, so that report's ongoing, still being written.
Yeah, I know, and but I think so much pivoting had to be done in 2020 that it was remarkable, really, and a great achievement by all. And there is an impressive quantity of information presented in the annual report, along with the financial plan and the corporate documents. But when you add them all together, it's about 280 pages of reading. So there may be residents who are very keen, but there will be a lot who would maybe be overwhelmed. And so if the purpose of the reports is for public accountability, as Ms. Williams said, maybe for future documents, we would once again, I will put forward that we maybe think of doing some summarized version, as it seems to be a trend in other communities. I guess we're appreciating that there's unfortunately with the website, it has encouraged the massive reports and now we're shrinking them again. But I did read through it all. I would like to just thank our Director of Finances. I do like the statistical section, starting at page 103 of the document. But it was a good wrap up to the report. So I guess you have to read right to the end to get some of that information. But I think that information is something that many residents really appreciate, because it does capture a lot of the information that I think they want to know. And I appreciate the continuous improvement in capturing some of those stats. There was a couple of things, though, that when I looked at everything flows out of the 2020 financial plan. And so some of the questions I have, it's really, we use metrics in the annual report, which are great for trending, particularly in operations, but I don't think they're quite as effective as key performance indicators to measure progress against strategic plans and long-term goals. So there were some special initiatives in the 2020 financial plan that included projects where I think performance indicators might have given me at least a better understanding of the progress. And a few of those were, and I don't know who will best speak to that. So one of the ones I thought that was important was progress against the human resources plan. It started in the 2020 budget, and it did have a workforce plan, staff retention, and all of the policies and procedures and training that go with that, promoting performance excellence, and then safety and wellness. And it was difficult for me to gauge from this report the progress that was made during the year on that. So if whoever on staff could maybe give a brief overview, and I do recognize this is a continuous program, so in future years, I would think that we would get more progress reporting on it.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. We don't have our Director of HR with us, I don't think, here tonight.
Your worship.
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, you are? Okay, so Ms. Donnelly, welcome.
Thank you.
I have limited view on my screen here, that's all. So let me just see if I can scroll out a bit. Okay, go ahead, Ms. Donnelly.
Thank you, and through your worship. You're right, Councillor Patterson. This is a sort of a multi-year, multi-component plan. And with the COVID, HR's focus has been very much on that over 2020. So, you know, we have been making some headway in terms of different components in that plan. Specifically, the biggest one is the occupational health and safety, the sort of the refurbish of the occupational health and safety program, which has been a huge focus of mine because I felt that was the highest risk to the organization. And so we've made some great headway in that program. We have actually pulled together and developed an occupational health and safety program, and have just recently hired an occupational health and safety officer that will be starting on August the 3rd, that will be focusing his attention primarily on taking that program, reviewing it, tweaking it, and implementing that program. So that out of the whole human resources plan, that is probably the largest component in that plan. We've made some headway with our performance feedback and review. Policies and procedures have been developed, and we will be doing training this fall. We've developed staffing policy and procedures, which will work to make staffing more consistent throughout the organization, and that training will happen in the fall. There were some components in the HR plan, though, that we weren't able to even touch because of COVID. Things like the QP long service recognition program. You know, we wanted to have an event that included council that we just couldn't do during 2020. So that's something that we will have to defer. The employee engagement survey was something that we would love to do. But during COVID, that was very difficult to do as well. maybe we can probably do a better job of sort of reporting that out in future in terms of sort of, instead of just the big plan, sort of compartmentalizing the different initiatives in the plan and sort of showing progress in that area for the various initiatives in the plan.
Great, thank you very much, Ms. Donnelly. Go ahead, Councillor Patterson.
Yes, and I thank Ms. Donnelly for that. I think that it was kind of the information that I was looking for. And so it is nice to know that within that year that actually so much was achieved. So I know that Ms. Donnelly had some real goals there on that. So it's nice to know that the progress was made. The other big one under that same special initiatives, and it was referred to by our Director of Finances, and that was progress on the asset management strategy and funding. As was reported, there was a significant increase in the amount of funding that went to the capital assets. Although I know when I read the annual report, it still does, again, the performance indicators are a little tough to analyze, but it would look like the work on the storm mains and the sanitary sewers and the sidewalk replacements were very small portions of the entire system. But if perhaps just some comments on that, because I know it was significant funding compared to previous years, but really it's, what does that buy us?
Thanks, Councillor Patterson. Mr. Haran, I believe this falls squarely into your department.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I wonder if it might be a question that might be apropos to talking later on. I don't know, I can't believe I just said apropos, but talking later on as we talk asset management this evening, later in the agenda, because I think we strike right at the heart of these kinds of questions. So balancing just the celebrating successes in terms of asset management and improvement, but also the significant challenges that still remain. So I think one of the struggles we have is that KPIs or metrics around asset management progress are definitely for municipalities that are farther ahead in the journey, like in terms of the maturity of the asset management practices. So we're not quite there in a way that to report out as effectively as we'd like, but one step at a time.
Thank you, Mr. Haran. I think probably does make sense to tackle the details of the asset management of that in that section. Go ahead, Councillor Patterson.
Yes, and thank you. And I'm happy to wait and go to that later on the agenda, because I know it is an item. The next couple of questions I have are more curiosity ones, I guess, of what transpired during the year. But under the financial services IT on page 34, it had monitoring parking enforcement. And I don't quite understand the role of financial services and monitoring parking enforcement, but perhaps there's something I'm just not familiar with.
Does it fall under his department? I'll go to to Director Payne, and perhaps he can hand it off to somebody else if he needs to. Welcome back, Mr. Payne.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I gather the question is just, is parking enforcement currently under the management of the finance department? And the answer is yes. Previously, it was under corporate services, but I believe in 2020, it was transferred to under the finance services department.
As opposed to that we're just trying to increase income. Sorry. Thank you for that. And I guess our chief of police is perhaps not here, but under the 2019 report, one of the initiatives was implementing the new provincial police standards of police stops and street checks. And I'm not clear exactly what that is or what progress has been made against it, but I'm not certain that there's anyone here to speak to that tonight.
I can probably touch on that, Councillor Patterson. The Oak Bay Police Department, which as mayor, I sit as chair of the board, undertake monthly, basically, policy reviews and updates. So sometimes those are driven by internal factors and sometimes they're driven by external factors. Typically, they come from provincial dictates through the Ministry of Police Services that lay out current expectations and best practices for behaviors and activities. So out of a number of concerns about profiling based on racial or other socioeconomic indicators by police, they released new standards for those, for any kind of street checks that are undertaken. And so those are just, they were brought down from the province. Training was done and implemented at a local level.
Thank you, Mayor. And just a couple more if I can continue. Under building and planning on page 50, the bylaw enforcement complaints increased significantly over previous years. I don't know if that's because we had fewer residents leaving the community, but and I don't know what insight or tracking we do to understand what generates the complaints, but I noticed that there were significantly more, 270 versus 164 the prior year and 130 the year before that. So not trending, those aren't trending in a great direction.
They're not. Mr. Anderson, I'm not sure if you're able to, if you have any insights as to why the increase in those complaints or reports.
The only one comment I'd make is that we certainly did see more inquiries and complaints associated with COVID and enforcement around public health orders and that. So that's a factor there. But I think we also were experiencing increased interest in complaints on the part of folks who were at home more often than they were in the previous years. So I think that's also a bit of a component to that increase. Thank you, Worship.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Go ahead, Councillor Patterson.
Yeah, great. And one last question, like to always end it on a high note here. I noticed that urban forest, it looked to me on page 59 when I was looking at private and public property, it looked like there was an uptake of about 14% net gain or 48 trees, which would be a good news story. I think that would be a great way to be trending.
Sure. I don't know if we have anybody here from Parks that would probably have the details on that or to explain it. I don't see anybody on my screen. Oh, Colin, Mr. Herman. Yes, welcome, Mr. Herman, our Director of Parks, Recreation and Culture.
Thank you, Your Worship. I don't have too much to add other than to suggest that this is certainly an area that was not impacted by COVID as other areas of the department were. And the manager of Park Services does a lot of work trying to obtain little pieces of grants from different areas for tree purchases and is working hard to get as many trees into the ground as possible. So I think those numbers speak to the efforts of him and his crew.
Great. I appreciate that information, and that concludes my questions on the annual report, and I congratulate staff on producing the document, albeit I would like it to be a few pages shorter perhaps in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. It is a big document for sure. I actually caught myself reading it. I got so engrossed I missed the start of a meeting as I was one of my breaks. So it has at least some readability factor to it, which is always a positive thing. I'm just going to invite if anybody from the public wishes to call. That's the numbers on the screen. This would be your chance. We only have 2 or 3 hands up now, so we expect to finish this up pretty quickly. If you wish to address us, this is your chance. So please call in now. Go ahead. I have Councillor Zalka, Appleton, and then Green.
Thank you, Chair. Question through you to staff, and of course, major compliments. It's a fabulous read, and always good to see and advertise all the great work that's being done across the district. I'm very impressed at the asset management work. It has pointed out here that we're spending 70% more this year than 2019 on asset management, and I think that's absolutely fantastic. With respect to, and that's on page 67 in the financial area, the concept of the asset management really is a theme throughout the entire document. So if I look at the environmental sustainability highlights, it makes reference to, for example, the Humber and the Rutland pump station overflow numbers. And I do notice that we capture those there, and unfortunately they've increased, and probably related to the environmental aspects, and they seem comparable to 2 years ago. But I did also note that in the there are other flooding events throughout the district. The engineering and public works highlights on page 56 don't make any reference to any other flooding aspects with respect to, for example, a catch basin overflow or possibly basements flooding. The concept of asset management, you know, where it really means a lot to the folks throughout the district is how it affects their own property. Is there anything captured in this document today that captures, for example, the number of flooding events or catch basin overflows or those sorts of things? I was wondering if the staff could comment on that, please.
Sure. Thank you, Councillor Zalka. I know there's some difficulty with capturing data from private property because it's not always reported, but Mr. Haran, how do we do that? And can we add some of those metrics going forward?
Thank you for the question. Through your worship. No, as you see, there isn't any of that information in the current 2020 information that we're reporting out. I think I would need to take some time to be able to put together a better answer for this question. But I do think it does fall into similar categories of, 3, 4, 5, 6 years ago, before the asset management journey even started, the idea that we'd be able to report out on some of this kind of information was inconceivable. And then now that we've been able to do this kind of reporting in such a great way, it's excellent to say, well, can we do more? Can we have more? But I don't think the level of effort increase is linear necessarily for this stuff. So I think there's a real question here at some point of, in terms of the maturity of our asset management practices and just our operations in general, to be able to report out on some of these metrics and KPIs. I do think it's a level of service question and something that we'll have to come back to the council to discuss further.
Thank you, Mr. Haran. Go ahead, Councillor Zalka.
Thank you. I have only good things to say about the report, and of course the wonderful thing about a framework like asset management is that it will facilitate further questions and further reveal of data going forward. And next year, when we start talking about the next year's annual report, I guess in the time of priorities and those sorts of things, that might be one of the numbers might want to be asking at a key performance indicator, such as were there any well, I don't know, the Municipal Financial Authority, sometimes the paperwork goes through where even though something happened on the private sector, it actually created some paperwork. So might be able to track something like that going forward as a way of just seeing how the asset management as a proxy measure is actually making things better as we go further along. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Zalka. I have Councillor Appleton Green and the nay.
Thank you, Worship, and through you to staff. Just a few comments that I think that are important for members of the public that may be watching and maybe that have taken the time to review the annual report, because I know that they do. It is as compared as was last year's. An impressive document, a very useful document. I just wanted to take time to recognize staff for the time that they've taken to acknowledge where COVID-19 has caused delays and modifications to municipal operations. That's key to capture, and I think that people would be able to, the average resident would know instinctively that that was the case. But may not really be able to put their finger on exactly what that means for municipal operations. So I thank staff very much for incorporating that into the report. And for those members of the public that are reviewing the annual report, I would strongly suggest that you sort of review those points which have been affected by COVID, of which there are many. So I just wanted to make that point. And it adds to an already very good document. And further to that, just in very particular, I'll just point out what I think is probably one of the most modest statements that's ever been made in a document of this type, which is under Parks, Recreation and Culture. Their first highlight being modifying internal processes and plans to continue to provide safe services to the public during the pandemic, which is one sentence which captures an astounding amount of work on behalf of Parks, Rec and Culture to try to find a way to have our facilities operate under extremely challenging conditions. all municipal operations in 2020 were affected by COVID. But I just wanted to personally take a little bit of an opportunity to specifically recognize Parks, Rec, and Culture because of all the things that had to be learned and all of the processes that had to be adapted in their operation. Everybody has done that. Parks, Rec, and Culture did so under a very tight time frame with a lot of moving parts and a lot of interest on behalf of the public to get things back to normal. So I just wanted to recognize that one particular statement, which encompasses a massive amount of work on behalf of staff. And that's really it for me. For me, your worship is just is a very, very excellent document for the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Appleton. I have next Councillor Green and then Nay.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. And I'm just going to echo everyone else's comments about what a great document this is. I really appreciate its readability. It really is a tremendous piece of work, given what has been going on for the last 15 months. And my hat is off to staff for all of their hard work and focus to get this completed, and also to put forward such a positive image about Bay for its residents to appreciate, because I actually think the annual report is one of the key documents that we produce each year that residents actually read. And they might not read much, but they'll read this. So it has a critical part to play in informing our residents, and it really does serve to inform them well. And I'm very grateful. Thank you for all the effort.
Thank you, Councillor Green. Councillor Nay.
Where is that button? I found it. Okay, good. Yeah, my general comments are very consistent with my council colleagues. As I was last year, I found this a very impressive document, and I think staff has done a very fine job here. It's more than readable. It's kind of, I mean, I don't know if a page turner is an exaggeration exactly, but depending where you're coming from, I really do. It's laid out, it's organized nicely. And I think the metrics over that you're showing, so we can see trends, are just interesting phenomena that give sort of a little bit more dynamics to what's going on in the community. So yeah, I'm really impressed with it. I sort of imagine somebody new coming to the community and getting their hands on this. I think it would give them a real good feel about how this community works, where it's coming from, where it's trending to, and the current status, and from a social and an economic environmental perspective. So yeah, kudos to staff. I have two, having said that, I went through some of those metrics that you've got. I had a couple little, these are really piddly questions, but they did prompt my curiosity. So my first one, actually a couple of them were already mentioned by other councillors, but if I could just say, and maybe you, Mr. Mayor, could speak to this, it's on page 42, the metrics for police statistics. And I just have a comment, and there may be a good reason why it's laid out like this, but in the tabulation of police statistics on page 42 of the document, under the tabulations called category, at the last one, it says violation tickets and warnings issued. I personally, I would like to see those two separated, because it gives a different kind of feel about how our police interact with our community, is a comment. And feedback is also that I noticed that restorative justice conferences have slipped out of our purview. We never see them anymore. I know we do our work now through Victoria Restorative Justice, but I think it's important that we understand, myself, about how many of those kinds of conferences are being used in our police work. And to that point also, if I may say this, my perspective, but though I have one critique about, I think some of the photos are wonderful, by the way. There's some really nice ones. The one that sort of makes me uncomfortable, and it may just be me, is the photo here under this police section it's on page 41. And other than these two young boys, I don't see any other photos of children or young people. And the only one we have is where these two police officers are talking, it looks like interacting with these young boys. So I could see how that could show that our police are interacting with our young boys, but it could also look like it could be looked like otherwise. I don't know. It leaves me with a feeling, and I'm concerned that it would leave the only interaction of police with people are with these two boys, and it kind of creates it could contribute to a stereotyping of young people in trouble all the time kind of thing. I may be oversensitive to this because I did a lot of restorative justice work. I do know we have two females on bikes, but it's just a thought. It's only my perspective. I don't know if anybody else has a reaction like that. I have one other question. It's about the fire. Somebody asked about the complaint one in building and planning. So on page 43, no, that was the first. I can't find it. I guess what I'm hoping, one thing I like is that it gives us an opportunity to get some perspective on what we've been doing. And one thing that came for me, this is not a comment about the report because you can't put things in we're not doing, but I really do hope that next time we put the report out, we'll have a lot more to say about our involvement with First Nations people. So, and in our community, which I suspect will be the case. So thank you very much to staff for this. Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you, Councillor Ney. Councillor Green, your hand is still officially up. I'm not sure if that's intentional or not. Not, okay. I've made the call a few times here. Is there anybody from the public that has indicated they wish to speak? If you're in Zoom, you can raise your hand. If you're calling in, you can hit *9 to raise your hand. I don't see any other callers besides Mr. Herman in our meeting here today. So Ms. Williams, I'm going to go on the safe assumption here. I think that there's no members of the public who have indicated they wish to speak.
You are correct, Mayor Murdoch.
Okay, thank you very much for that. We just need two motions, one to receive and one to approve. We can do them together if people so moved and seconded for the two motions. This is to receive the report and to approve it. Any other discussion? Not seeing any. All those in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Thank you very much. I probably should have said this before we had the vote, but I'll just echo the appreciation I have for all the senior leadership team. I know it's a lot of work to put these documents together, to tie it back to the strategic priorities, to keep the statistics that we've asked be kept. I think it's important that we have consistent metrics over years so we can kind of follow those. And it's work in progress. And always, if there's suggestions on how to make it better, we will do so. So members of council and members of the public, if you have thoughts, please feel free to share them with council or staff at any time. With that, we'll move on to item number 6.2. This is just a second quarter council priorities update in the spirit of all of our reporting here. Ms. Bay, you've been the instrument in charge of this. Perhaps I'll just let you introduce it.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. The report before you provides the latest and greatest council priority plan. It's been updated to reflect decisions you made through your annual review of priorities and subsequent budget deliberations. The document was formerly known as our corporate plan, but we are recommending changing its name to reflect the document's focus on council priorities. Per previous council direction, the document is organized by council priority. The document lists your priorities and indicates timelines for completion. Also attached to your reports is a second quarter update on progress towards achieving your priorities. I'm pleased to report that we are on track to deliver on all of those priorities. The report provides information on the status of each priority initiative, and staff are here tonight to provide additional details should you be interested in such. In addition to work on the priority initiatives, staff have been extraordinarily busy with other items, delivering on ongoing operational services. Council alluded to some of those earlier on. In terms of the extraordinary effort that's been with especially some departments adapting services to respond to COVID. We have, in many departments, had to adjust services as necessary to respond to changing provincial health officer and WorkSafe BC orders and guidelines. So, and that some services have had to adjust, and other services have been able to continue through the pandemic without additional adjustment, but still requiring significant effort. As well, over the past months, we've been decamping from offices and then getting ready to move back into offices following the municipal hall refurbishment. So a lot of this work has certainly for the municipal hall based staff required significant additional work to facilitate that refurbishment. We've also been responding to customer and media queries, and staff do note that there's been an increase in those customer queries requiring additional support over the past months. You have on your agenda for later tonight an update report on the asset management program. Of course, there's been ongoing work on the capital projects front throughout this process, or throughout the past several months, and that has also taken staff time. And then we have been proactively improving internal systems and processes. So there's a lot of behind the scenes work that goes on to make sure that we continue to improve our systems and our processes to deliver the absolute best customer service possible, and to respond to changes in technology as we see that involve. So it's been a full-on past 6 months. The next 6 months are also looking to be equally full on. In the next few months, we will be returning to in-chambers council meetings, getting staff back into the hall and reopening in-person services to the community, while still working to deliver on council's 2021 priorities and simultaneously delivering on and improving those ongoing services. So, Your Worship, the report, I think, provides a high-level overview of where we're at with each of the updates. It is our second quarter update. There'll be another update at Q3. And the council priorities plan is a place where we track all of those priorities, or at least list all of council's priorities, and these update reports are where we report on progress. So, as mentioned earlier, directors are available to answer any questions you have related to the update.
Great. Thank you very much, Ms. Bay. And I'll turn it over to council if anybody here has any questions, or I think we can probably do questions and comments at this point on this, as it's a motion to receive is all that's in order here. Go ahead, Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Mayor, and I'm happy to make that motion
Is there a seconder? Moved and seconded. So the motion is live. That frees us up a bit more formally to have comments and questions. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I don't really have questions. I really appreciate very much that the report is now laid out under the individual sections that really relate back to council strategic priorities. It really helped clarify for me what actions were being taken by each department against these significant initiatives that council wanted. So I find this very useful. I guess one of the only comment I had to make is I noticed the document has been more condensed also. So I am thinking that some of the more operational pieces have been edited to just fine tune it to really focus on council strategic priorities, but perhaps staff would like to comment on that.
Sure. Thank you, Councillor Patterson. Ms. Bay, is that accurate?
That is indeed accurate, Your Worship. The more operational aspects of this have been removed. In fact, I believe they were removed at the last go around as well. So this is continuing on with that. So these are the ones that we're reporting on. And I will note that this document has been updated to reflect Council's direction earlier on, or early on this year when Council reviewed your strategic priorities. There are also further changes introduced through the budget process, which have also been incorporated. So the document, this update does capture the changes that were made by highlighting those in green for transparency purposes. And we will, of course, continue to keep this document updated as Council continues to make refinements in the remainder of your term.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mayor. I have no further questions, and I appreciate the information that was just provided by Ms. Bay.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. Go ahead, Councillor Green.
Yes, I just want to say as well, thank you very much, Ms. Bay. I really like the format. I think it's, again, good readability. It's easy to follow. I like the way you've categorized it, and I really have no other comments other than a question, and it really isn't for you as much as it is for us as council, but it would be, I think, important to reflect somewhere in the document the work that we're beginning to do around Indigenous reconciliation. I don't know how or where we want to reflect that, and that will be, a decision for perhaps the mayor and Lou as well as council, but I think somewhere it should be reflected because it is work that certainly the mayor has been involved in, and it may pick up speed as we go forward. So it's more or less a rhetorical question. Should it be included somewhere in our strategic initiatives? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Green. It's a good point in terms of the, yes, it's always nice to have work reflected in the reports. Otherwise it's hard for people to see what's going on. And it's certainly a question that comes up. Any other questions or comments at this time? We have a motion on the floor, so just the motion is to receive. Before I call the question, I will again express my appreciation to staff for this and to council. This is a joint effort, as Ms. Bay pointed out. It's the feedback given during the financial review process and the annual report and all these other pieces. It forms part of that suite of products, and it's important that it's consistent, that it meets our expectations and therefore the community's expectations. So I just want to thank council for their thoughtful feedback, and that'll keep going as we go. Go ahead, Councillor Zelka, you had your hand up, and then Councillor Braithwaite. Sorry, I don't always see physical hands, so the little glowing yellow ones are quite helpful. Go ahead, Councillor Zelka.
Okay, there. Can you hear me?
We can.
Oh, that's fantastic. I just wanted to ask through you to staff with respect to the mass notification system that went live in May 2021. This is, I guess, on page. Oh, there's no page numbers. Page 10. I just wanted to confirm: is that the Alertables app, which has been so helpful for me in the last couple of days, alerting me to this heat wave that's been going on, or is it something else?
I believe it is, but perhaps I'll leave it to staff who wants to jump in here on that particular item. I'm going to have to put
Your
someone on the
Worship,
spot
that
here.
is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Sorry about the delay.
No worries.
And,
go ahead, Councillor Zelka.
I just wanted to give my congratulations to staff in particular on that item, since it is so timely. I've been very impressed at being told by the District of Oak Bay that we've got all these issues, and that it's very easy for those messages to get through. And I also am pleased to see that on the website it's encouraging folks to sign up, and I'm sure we could take this opportunity to encourage anyone listening in to sign up for that particular mass notification system called Alertables. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Councillor Zelka. I don't see any. Oh, Councillor Braithwaite.
I'm sorry, Mayor. I just wasn't sure whether you were getting prepared to move on without doing the other recommendation about renaming this plan.
Fair point. We'll do the motion to receive first, and then we'll take the motion separately. Thank you, Councillor Braithwaite. Any other discussion on the motion to receive? Not seeing any. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. And the second motion, do you wish to make that, Councillor Braithwaite?
Sure, yeah.
Moved. So this is the motion to be renamed the Council Priorities Plan as opposed to the work plan. Any discussion on that? Councillor Appleton, did you have your hand up? No. Okay. So the motion is moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? None opposed. That carries. Thank you very much. We now have a quarterly council priorities update coming. That's much better worded. And up next and last, we have item 6.3 on the agenda. We have Mr. Haran, our Director of Engineering and Public Works, to give us an overview. This is something that really looking forward to seeing, and as part of, again, an effort to move us more meaningfully forward on our asset management piece. So welcome, Mr. Haran.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm just going to get my screen flashed up here. And then, okay. I believe this time I have my technical issues sorted out. Do you see a full screen there, Your Worship?
No, we don't.
You
see
don't?
your. It says Dan Haran has started screen sharing.
Okay, well, that's right.
So that's interesting.
I even did a dry run today to make sure that I wouldn't have this backwards. Okay, I think we'll have to back out of this. Having some trouble.
Oh, there we go. Now it's working.
I think we're going to have to rely on Victoria to do the screen share again for us, please.
Oh, there we go. There's the there's the presentation.
Thank you, Victoria. Okay, we'll do. I'll start talking, and then when I'm ready, I'll do next slide. So yes, thanks, Your Worship. If you're ready for me to bash ahead, I'll go ahead here.
No, that'd be great. Thank you.
Perfect. So next slide, please. So thank you for the opportunity to come back to Council tonight to talk about some of the issues that was asked about back in March in financial plan meetings around asset management progress and the capital program in general in terms of infrastructure. And before I just get too far into it, I do want to just highlight for those watching and for anybody that asks later on that there is an asset management program page that has all of the information that we talk about tonight in terms of the background documentation, this presentation, previous presentations, and everything that talks about our journey here in terms of asset management. And so that's the link there that we can see. Next slide, please. So Council's and Oak Bay's asset management journey started back in April 20. Oh, we've gone to one slide ahead here. If we go back one, please. There we go. The journey started in April 2015 when Council directed staff to start an asset management program. So a multi-year, multi-project initiative that kickstarted some foundational steps of a program that you can see there below from 2015 to 2018. So some of these are just so fundamentally important to the program that they started when they did, and that's the expansion of the storm and sanitary sewer condition assessment program, delivery of a municipal buildings condition assessment report, the delivery of the asset management program assessment, and which included an infrastructure scorecard type of activity in there, and then some critical council updates on the state of infrastructure and asset management practices, followed by briefs and decisions on foundational policy issues, including reserves and debt financing. Next slide, please. And then in May 2018, we had the adoption of the asset management policy and strategy, which really kickstarted some ideas to move forward here in Oak Bay with some made in Oak Bay solutions. So we're not able with our size and makeup to do what many of the other larger municipalities can do or have done with respect to asset management. So we had to find a way to make it work with the resources we had and with the constraints that we had. And so for Oak Bay, that really does mean a couple of things. It means making funding commitments around asset management. It means defining some key projects that are foundational to the asset management program. And it means getting to work on increasing the output of capital rehabilitation programs, all pointing towards achieving specific asset management goals for the district. So some of those foundational issues you can see summarized here, including some initial funding allocations to the infrastructure reserves, allocation of the gas tax to the reserves, and then immediate in 2018, incremental increases in all the major infrastructure asset classes so that we could start making that progress as we've defined in the asset management program. Next slide, please. So we do really need to take the opportunity to celebrate success in Oak Bay. We have a more sophisticated 5-year financial planning process in place. We're trending towards 100-year sustainable funding targets in terms of asset management. And we have a consistent, predictable funding in the 5-year plan, which is leading to ramped up capital program planning and output. But we have some many infrastructure challenges to face ahead, and we really do need to go one step at a time. Next slide, please. So I'm going to spend a couple of minutes talking about this slide because I think it's really important to talk about both the successes and the challenges that the district faces. What we see here are 4 graphs which represent 4 of the asset classes that we deal with in Oak Bay: the storm sewer mains in the top left, sanitary sewer mains, water, and then finally pavement management, which is a bit of a different beast. So in the 4 graphs, you see blue lines. The blue lines represent the capital output targets for each asset class. And these targets are based on information from previous asset management studies, such as the OPUS report, and represent council's targets of where are we trying to go and what are we trying to achieve. The red lines represent what our budgets were from 2016 to 2021 in each of those areas. So what you see is in each area, year by year, that the output is trending upwards, and that's excellent. And it matches council's strategic priorities over the period of 2017 to 2020. The targets that you see here were set and based on the 100-year replacement of mains. That means if you funded at the blue line level and you replaced your mains accordingly, you'd be on a 100-year cycle to renew the whole system. But if you didn't fund that way, or if you didn't replace your mains, in other words, if you had deferred maintenance or an infrastructure deficit, you'd have to find a way to catch up, and you'd have deferred maintenance in that would be a significant challenge. So your initial targets can be set as the blue lines in these graphs. And as your funding starts to match, and as you start to get a better understanding of your overall asset management program, you will need to set new targets, both for annual funding and for how many years you want to work to try to address the maintenance backlog. And we'll talk about all of this stuff more in the next few minutes. Next slide, please. Oh, go one back, thank you. So when we first set up the asset management program in Oak Bay, we had to determine how to come up with some metrics or how to measure progress at the beginning when you're starting from scratch. So for us, at the beginning, it was defining an asset management program, a series of projects all related to each other that all lead to an outcome that means progress for Oak Bay. So as I mentioned a few minutes ago, just to kind of go over it again, the way we measured progress in the asset management program was funding levels, set targets, and make incremental increases to achieve them, which is the district has done. Projects, define scope and schedule for key asset management projects, and then are you completing them on time? And we've done that, and I'll talk about some of those projects here in the next few slides. And then later, as an organization's asset management practices mature, you can incorporate decision-making dashboards and other more sophisticated measures or metrics to allow for even better infrastructure governance going forward. But for now, here is a summary of the program. And what we've done, basically what I'm about to show, is that we have critical aspects of the program that are well underway, or they're completed, or they're about to be started as per the original plan in the asset management program. So this first slide here shows in the asset management program some of those foundational projects or issues: the asset management policy, financial framework, condition assessment program, and then the beginnings of the work of levels of service, documentation, and metrics. Next slide, please. Excuse me. This slide, another critical important one, is the one where most people, when they hear the word asset management plan, they're usually thinking of something closer to this. So we have started and completed a water master plan, which is smaller in scope and in terms of what it covers than many of the ones that you see, but it was really an effective master plan that covers the next 10 years minimum for us here in Oak Bay. Then you have a sewer master plan, which is already underway and is meant to be completed before the end of this year. Storm master plan, which was planned to start in 2022, and we're ready to go heading in that direction as per the original asset management program plan. And then a number of key activities in those other plans, as per the original ideas, foreshore capital plans, transportation, that build into the planning activity that we had never quite done before, to be able to really lay out what are the infrastructure demands over the next 20 to 50 years, and how do we achieve those. And finally, one that I skipped over there, is the facilities master plan, which we started this year as well. Again, critical projects in this program that are well underway, are completed, or are about to start as per the initial plan. Next slide, please. Another critical slide here is number 3, long-term financial plan. At the beginning of the asset management program 4.5 years ago, we recognized the need to do some work, some serious work around trying to identify 50 to 100-year infrastructure replacement requirements and the funding needs. And council directed staff to do that work, which is currently on schedule, being led by Mr. Payne, and to be delivered in the third quarter of this year. And the rest of and we'll talk a little bit more about this one near the end of the presentation. And finally, the 4th section, which is not as interesting to talk about, but serious, but very important to us, which is some of those system of record, data quality standards, and other issues that underpin the rest of the program to help us be organized and professional going forward. Next slide, please. So we are able to celebrate successes in the district in the last 5 years, but it's time also to look with fresh eyes at the challenges ahead. The district needs to address two or more decades of deferred maintenance and infrastructure rehabilitation. And the district needs to wrap its head around, staff and the community need to figure out how to keep program and project delivery aligned with increasing budgets and expectations to achieve the goals. So the equation at the bottom, very simple one. I can't be an engineer without giving you at least one equation. So you have the funding, which we, based on the financial reporting and the 100-year cycle, on track. It's good progress. It's increasing incrementally every year. And then you have our ability to do capital project capacity and capability, which is lagging. And both of those things together is how we do sustainable service delivery. And I do really need to talk about that second part. What do we mean by lagging, and what is that? What are the details on that? In the next few minutes is what we're going to talk about for that. Next slide, please. So this is a lot of numbers, but a really good slide to spend a few minutes on, to talk about how we can both celebrate our successes, but still recognize that there are infrastructure challenges ahead. What we see here is an illustrative example. It's the storm and sanitary sewer summary of work that we did between 2016 and 2020. And it represents an uptick in that sanitary sewer and storm work compared to the years before 2016. What you have is the years across the top, 2016 through 2020, and the numbers showing the number of meters of rehabilitation completed each year, broken down into storm sewer and sanitary sewer, and then conventional digs, where you have a trench and the crews replacing a pipe in the old-fashioned way, and then trenchless rehabilitation, which is done through contractor typically to do much more work at a cheaper rate throughout the district. And you can see that we've done both of those through the years. And as you go through and see the total work done in those 5 years, it's 9,500 meters, so 9.5 kilometers. Measured against the whole amount of sewers is 240 kilometers almost. So that's just under around 4% of the system was rehabilitated in the last 5 years. So that's under 1% per year. So we were able to increase our output from 2016 onward using the funding increases for capital work as directed by council, by taking advantage of trenchless technology. So that's faster design process and faster implementation, and working very hard to try to do more each year with the existing staff levels we had. Planning, we found efficiencies in our planning and delivery. We used consultant support to increase our capacity where we could. And it was all to do good, significant work while we ramp up our asset management program and capital delivery. But it's still sobering because our team now, busier than we've been in quite some time, using significant budget increases to maximize our project output, and still only completing 4% of the system in over 5 years. So it will be a challenge to sustain on those numbers. We are not doing enough, and there are no quick solutions, quick fix solutions at hand. Next slide, please. This slide is similar information, but rolls up the whole infrastructure and capital works program starting from 2018 onward. So here, what we're trying to show is progress over time and the future challenges. It's the overall infrastructure and public works budget from 2018 through the plan into 2024. Prior to 2018, this same budget, so infrastructure and public works, was closer to 3 million. And you can see starting in 2018, the target was 6 and the actuals were 4 million. And it had been relatively static at 3 million for a number of years. So the level of capital output after 2018 is increasing. And you can see how the increase in planning allows us to plan and deliver more as we go further. So the decisions made in 2018 to 2019 allow us to shoot for a much higher capital output from 2021 onward, which is an excellent thing. But there are pressures now to sustain or grow these capital program going forward. And there's still some question about what we're doing in 2024 and beyond. Are we sustaining the output that we reached in 2024? Are we doing less or are we doing more? And that's a question for the governance level, and it's a question for levels of service and the next steps after a meeting like tonight. Next slide, please. So we've just completed the first half of what essentially what I needed to brief you on, and the second half is a little bit different, but ties in the same issues. And it's where I go into a bit of the detail here about the capital improvement program that we have underway. And before I go too far into that, I just wanted to point out for anyone who's interested in to try to understand, if they're trying to understand how do we manage the program, how do we manage individual projects in terms of what's a good framework that the district uses to guide themselves to be professional about this kind of thing. And the idea is what we're doing is Project Management Institute's body of knowledge is a pretty standard way to do it. And then the Auditor General for local government has excellent primers on some of these issues, which I really find are great summaries for how we're trying to do it and how local government should really attack these kinds of challenges. Next slide, please. So before 2018, the district didn't have any asset management plans. Funding was too low to support program expansion, and staff was able to select 1 or 2 projects per year per asset class, and it resulted in the maximum we could do, and it was a continued accumulation of deferred maintenance. The level of effort for municipal staff, it was achievable, but it resulted in a program of about, give or take, 5 capital projects per year, a couple in water, storm, sewer, transportation, and the budgets for those was 50,000 or more for each. And that's kind of a steady state, sustainable capital output for our before 2018. Next slide, please. After 2018, in response to Council's direction to expand the output of capital rehabilitation, and with funding commitments in the 5-year financial program in place, it allowed staff to better anticipate and plan for capital work. So we were able to start to increase our output, start to work on developing shovel-ready projects for grant funding, and properly assess resources against asset management plan outcomes. Next slide. So this is a really good time for me just to highlight that I haven't planned to bring up individual Excel spreadsheets to talk about the capital program, but the attachment in the report that I provided to summarize what we're talking about tonight does include the spreadsheets that for water, sewer, storm, transportation, and special projects, which is our 2021 to 2025 5-year plan. Such a fully developed multi-year plan has not been published in Oak Bay in recent times for infrastructure and public works. It was a significant level of effort to develop this program. We worked hard in 2017, 2018, and 2019 to try to get ahead of the game in terms of project planning to set ourselves up multiple years ahead, but only achieved moderate success. And now we've been able to make that big leap forward that could enable such an expanded capital program going forward. So the team that was needed is just after the arrival of the Manager of Engineering Services, Steve Rennick, in August 2020, I brought on a full-time equivalent program management consultant to help us from September through January. And it was a significant level of effort for myself, Dave Brozick, Superintendent of Public Works, Steve Rennick, the Manager of Engineering Services, and our embedded contractor for that time period. As a product, the program, the documentation that was provided with the report tonight is a bit rough around the edges, but it represents a significant ramp up in our output. And in the future, we can try to find ways to make the product have a similar look and feel to annual reports or financial plans. But it's something we need to look at as we start to mature our program management and our way to report out on some of this activity. At the moment, our virtual team, which includes our full-time staff and includes our consulting engineering firms who have competed and won design contracts and our other support mechanisms that are in place to do this program, is over 10 plus firms engaged in design work for our current and upcoming capital works. We really are, at the moment, moving faster and doing more than we have in quite some time. And we really are learning right now what Oak-based capacities and capabilities really are in this area. Next slide, please. So to show you the type of work that goes into a capital renewal project, I thought it would be helpful just to walk through this slide a little bit. Whether it's a $250,000 sewer replacement, a 1.5 million water main, a 6 million package of pump station and water main upgrades in North Oak Bay, or a $10 million facilities replacement, the idea is the same. The phases of the project are broken down into what you see here: initiation, planning, execution, and closing for each project, with controlling and monitoring activity happening throughout. And there's a relative level of effort shown in this kind of drawing to show you the level of effort that's required to do these projects and how they overlap with each other. Planning activity usually includes things like feasibility studies, concept designs, public engagement, preliminary designs, procurement activity, communications, and initiation falls into some of the similar activities, but also things like business cases, should you even do a project, for example. And if you're doing more than 5 projects per year, or around 5 projects per year, like we were doing 2017, 2016 and earlier, then you decide you need to shift to taking on more complex or challenging projects, the level of effort for planning increases significantly. If you think about what was being done 7 or 8 years ago versus where we're heading, so 10 plus projects per year, the level of effort that has to change is not just construction oversight. You have to dramatically increase the work that you put into the initiation, the planning, the controlling and monitoring. And to be successful in these projects, to be delivering these projects on scope, on schedule, under budget, and doing the right projects and not just picking anything that's on the plate, it's a significant increase in the level of effort for staff. Next slide, please. This is a summary of the activity of things that happen in a project. And they're pretty standard stuff. If people involved in projects are not surprised to see any of these things: integration management, risk, scope, schedule, cost management for projects, procurement, so tenders, RFPs, contract administration, resourcing, both owned forces, contracted forces, consultants, quality, stakeholder communications, all standard project management body of knowledge activity areas. But the reason why I brought this up here is to say that as we look at the level of service for doing 10 plus projects per year instead of 5 plus projects per year, the red items are the ones where we start to see a lot more pressure than that is unprecedented in terms of staff. So schedule, procurement, stakeholder and communications management. We're already feeling these pressures in this area. Next slide, please. So what we've learned from 2018 to 2021 is the level of effort for municipal staff, if the outcome is expected to be 5 to 10 plus capital projects per year, and with an expected need to grow capacity and capability to do more as time goes on, it's unsustainable given the current resources. We're going to need to make changes if we want to achieve the expected outcomes in the strategic plan. So what are the next steps? Next slide, please. The next major step in the asset management program right now is the Strategic Infrastructure Renewal Plan, which I talked about earlier. It's being led by Christopher Payne, Director of Financial Services, and is meant to be delivered here in Q3 of 2021. That document and the presentations that will go with it are meant to provide the council and the community a forecast of the 50 to 100-year infrastructure replacement requirements and funding needs, talk specifically about the value of assets overdue for replacement, value of assets coming due in the short term, a condition of assets scorecard, and potential plans and options for renewal for the capital program for the next 30 years. Next slide, please. And then my team is about to start the next cycle of capital improvement programming, which is to begin this summer to try to flesh out the 2021 through 2026 program. And at the same time, we're meant to analyze and make recommendations on our current capacity versus the expected demand going forward for this kind of project planning and delivery activity. And the final slide, please. So outcomes and expectations. This slide is really just meant to say there are some questions unanswered in the asset management program, which don't necessarily need to be answered before now, but need to be put into the thinking for the future. So future governance decisions are, is there an increase or decrease or sustainment of the current levels of service? What are the levels of services? How do we define those things? Is there an acceleration or a slowing down of the asset management side, meaning the saving of funds for infrastructure or the long-term planning activity? Is there an acceleration or slowing down of the capital rehabilitation side, the construction, repair, and rehabilitation? And staff need to provide further recommendations regarding these level of effort to deliver and to develop and deliver this program going forward. Thank you very much. I think the next slide is questions. That is the presentation, Your Worship. I'm happy to take questions or comments at this time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Horan. It's nice to have that the presentation to go along with the report. I think it's helped sort of clarify for the layperson, including us, what it is that you're working on and why. So yes, happy to take questions of staff. This is not here so much for decision making tonight, but to give some guidance if necessary, and just ask questions for clarification and to help guide the next steps. So go ahead, Councillor Patterson, you're up first.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for the presentation, Mr. Horan. I think I agree with pretty well all of the comments that you made in the presentation. I guess my experience is a little different as a resident and now as a member of council, because actually the infrastructure deficit was first brought to public attention in the 2009 annual report. And that was because, of course, municipal governments across Canada had rule changes from the Public Sector Accounting Board and what they had to do. And some provinces actually have adopted legislation. BC is not necessarily the same as what takes place in other provinces. So, and certainly since Mr. Horan's time with us, significant progress has been made. And I support all of the information that he has presented tonight. My difficulty, though, as a member of council, is that some of the questions I think that will come to council and also be directed to us from residents are around a couple of items that I didn't really see covered in the presentation. And what was not clear to me is, the presentation really talked about inventory and programs and funding, and that was good. But I was also looking for, and continuing to look for, a roadmap. And by that, I mean the plan outlining the actions, responsibilities, the resources, and the timescales to implement and deliver on the assets. And in order, I think, for council to be able to give you the information that you will seek from us to move this forward, council will have to have a better understanding of the other component that is missing from this, and that is the risk. And from something as simple as the likelihood and consequences of an undesirable event, right through to how do we achieve the funding to take care of the infrastructure. Obviously, we've been making progress, but at a limited rate of replacement. But it's difficult without having a risk assessment to understand if, what the danger is keeping at that low level or how it needs to be accelerated. So certainly grading of each of the systems to indicate to members of council and the public, give us a better indication of what the risks are and what we need, what the best course of action is, the benefits that will be there for us in this. And that can be through more reliable service, reduction in some of the maintenance or unplanned maintenance, I will say, So it takes, you know, a number of avenues that the information will follow. But really, to get support for greater funding, council really will need to be able to articulate that along with staff as to what risk we consider acceptable or not acceptable, and the methodology by which we can secure funding to take to the next step. But at this point, we still don't really have that roadmap of exactly how to get there. And so I see the roadmap and the risk component is still not being addressed within the scope of this presentation. And so I'm wondering if we could touch on that tonight also.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. I would like to give Mr. Horan a chance to talk to those items as well. I think they're certainly part of the overall picture of where we are getting to. Mr. Horan, Councillor Patterson was talking about sort of more roadmap risks, gradings, et cetera. Perhaps you can just touch on some of those factors going forward.
If you could see me, if we were doing an in-person meeting, you'd see me furiously scribbling notes so that I don't forget some of the things that I need to say. So if you just give me 1 second, please, I won't forget what we're doing, what I'm trying to say. Okay. I think Mr. Payne and I struggled a little bit in trying to decide what information would be talked about tonight and what information makes a lot more sense to talk about when the strategic infrastructure renewal plan comes forward. And we realized maybe even 2 or 3 months ago, that wasn't as clear in our minds where the boundary lies between because initially what I was planning to cover was more of the things that you saw in the Opus report that had some state of the infrastructure kind of information. So a certain percentage was very poor in terms of, whatever it is, water assets, and poor versus good versus very good. And what we decided to do is take that information and include that as part of the strategic infrastructure renewal plan, which we're talking about in Q3, and include that information so that we can say, we've learned quite a bit from when Opus did their work in 2015. So we're able to kind of modify and update where we think we are. And it's appropriate to put it all in that and to lump it in that discussion. So that's the first part. The second part is the big issue, the challenge in Oak Bay is really in the beginning, when you're starting an asset management program, there's so much to do and so much to tackle that it really is a decision-making process that the council, the community, and staff together have to sit there and say, what are the things that are hard for Oak Bay that we should do first so that everything else afterwards comes easy? And the asset management program is designed that way. And that's why there's a couple of key activities in there, but the master plans are really the fundamental things that are highly technical in nature, but really do need to be done so that everything else can kind of fall into place. And some of those meaning, even the master plans couldn't be started right away because you needed good condition assessment program information done. You can't do a master plan if you don't know the state of your sewer or storm. So there's a multi-year process that we had to follow, which all of us, I think everybody wished that we could go faster, but actually looking back, we were able to move quickly to get us in the place now where we can do master plans for sewer and next year for sanitary or for storm. So the master plans are critical. I believe in the next 3 or 4 years, a lot more of that information that people are looking for in terms of a more fleshed out program of what's going to be happening over the next 20 years can be delivered. But I think that by itself is not going to be enough because you do also have to increase the output of the actual construction work that you have going on, the actual rehabilitation work that you have going on. And right now, in terms of the staff that we have, we are constrained. And so it was just wanted to be very clear tonight, and we've tried to be as clear as possible all along, but you'll be hearing it again from us as we talk about the strategic infrastructure renewal plan. There are times where staff will have to come back to say, here are the constraints and the issues. The risks are we're not resourced to move forward or accelerate based on the needs that are identified in the various plans. And the final issue I just wanted to also say is from the beginning of the program, staff was making recommendations to council saying there is a certain amount of funding that we recommend need to be put aside for infrastructure reserves, even though there aren't necessarily plans in place to allocate that funding for specific projects. So there was almost a bit of risk to say, we know that we're underfunding infrastructure. We need to start the saving now and then we'll catch up with the rest of the plan. So there's a little bit of going forward without having all the information. And we're still there. We have a lot more information now than we did 4 years ago, but we're still in a position where all of us are uncomfortable about the information that we have and wish that we had more at our fingertips to decide. But what we know is that we're still underfunding infrastructure. What we know is we still have to ramp up the output in terms of rehabilitation and work. And we know that that's not a linear, straightforward task. It's going to be a big challenge for us.
Thank you, Mr. Horan. Go ahead,
If I could-
Councillor Patterson.
Yeah, if I can just continue then, appreciate those comments. The difficulty, I think, will be in that as residents see the tax rates increasing and money going into reserve funds, it gets more difficult to keep the confidence there without having some more practical information to present to the residents that really confirms that we are moving in the right direction. It's probably very apparent, perhaps to staff who are all busy working on this, less apparent though to the rest of the community. And so communicating out where we are and what we want to do, I think is really important. And of course, it does come back to, for residents who are experiencing problems in their area at this point in time, everybody wants to know, when are you coming to my street? And it's hard to get away from that type of pressure. But I don't know that we have, perhaps part of everything that has been said tonight is also really developing a much better corporate communications around this whole aspect. And because what residents are hearing is quite often from staff, there is 90% of the time is to their, typical operations work, and 10% of the time is to special projects. And so if this falls into the category of special projects and residents are feeling that staff are only dedicating 10% of their time to it, then it gets harder to keep the support up from the residents in the community to fund what we need to move these forward. So I didn't see too much in this planning about really a strategy for corporate communications, but that's all part of that roadmap building that I talked about of responding back to residents and letting them know what is happening. And I guess that's just another burden that I'm putting back on staff, but I think it's an important component of it. And perhaps, I'm happy to know that there are project management consultants that are on board now helping with all of this. And perhaps that's something that they could also assist with. But if Mr. Horan has any comments or thoughts on that, I know he's engineering, not corporate communications, but nevertheless, his insight is always of value. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. I know there was some mention of communications in those project plans, but not necessarily in the other pieces. So, Mr. Ham, perhaps you can touch on that, and also perhaps just on that the notion of 90-10, and how do we get that 10%? Is that any kind of constraint for us in this general guideline for us, but is it a constraint and one we have to address as a council? Go ahead, Mr. Horan.
Yes, thank you, Worship. So two things to say. I think one of them, I think tonight's briefing itself, like this whole council's direction to come back and provide this information and talk about it tonight, is a perfect example of where we struggle sometimes, because we had made such great progress in the 5-year financial plan and the corporate documents and the annual report, those kinds of documents that we're able to report out on these things going on. And then when that's happening in February, March, there's a really useful question, which is, well, what are you doing with all this extra funding that's being added? And we knew that was going to happen. so the challenge is we can't all do it all at once. We have to take one step at a time. And if you could see me, you know, in front of you in the council chambers right now, you'd see me having my hands at the same level, my left and right hands. And as you move forward in one area, so my left hand is going up, you have to then catch up with your right hand, and all the different projects have to catch along. So corporate communications and how well we're doing is our weakness right now, because we do really want to spend time telling people what we're up to and where we're going, and the challenges and successes as well. So tonight is the first step in that. And I think operationally, we have an ability to talk more about these things as we go through the summer, and certainly when we do the strategic infrastructure renewal plan, that there will be some communications and an ability to talk more about those things. The 90-10 model, I think, is well, I call it a model. It's just a way to think about the kind of work that staff is doing when we talk about strategic priorities, special projects. So things that are new, and we've used that terminology in the past, or I have anyway, just to try to recognize that we weren't resourced 5 years ago to do more in terms of capital output. And we are a little bit better resourced now, but we still have some challenges and some issues. So I would say that the amount of level of effort that my team and I are putting into the capital program for asset management and trying to ramp up how much rehabilitation work we're doing out there is way more than the 10%. We've had to fill up our time and find other ways to do things that whether it's through consultants or contracting, to do as much as possible. And that's really what I was trying to emphasize earlier, to say that we've learned a lot. We've created efficiencies. We're doing as much as we can, but we're going to run up into limits as we get closer. And I'm not sure if it's going to be this year or next year or the year after, but at some point we're going to be able to say, well, that's the most we can do, and we need to make a change. So it's part of my job now in the next couple of months to really make a case in terms of risk management for HR and capacity to say, this is what we can do, or this is what we recommend, A or B. And I don't want to speculate on what those might be, but I'm in a hurry to try to get that information together to bring it forward so that we can put it in the grand context of the rest of what the district is trying to do as well.
Great, thank you. And I think that's probably a really important, I mean, at the end of the day, the goal here should be all of our asset management should be utterly boring and outside of council's purview. We're providing the funding. All of those plans are going in place at the operational level and should be firmly within that 90%, right? There shouldn't be special projects in the sense of that. They should be within that operational bandwidth. We just haven't provided the funding to this point to actually allow that to happen. So hopefully we'll get there sooner rather than later. Go ahead, Councillor Patterson.
Yes, and thank you for those comments, Mayor. I don't think in certainly this present council's time, we are going to get to that status quo type of thing on these. That's a long way off, but I appreciate the comments. I appreciate the comments that Mr. Haran has made, and his trying to bring some context to the whole asset management. And so I will end my questions there tonight, but certainly I will hope that we are making more headway in how we are going to tackle this when the presentation comes to us in September again. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. I have Councillor Appleton and then Green.
Thank you, Your Worship. A couple of questions for staff through you. Firstly, I was wondering if Director Haran might just expand a little bit on the facilities master plan specifically that is now underway, and just wanting to get some information about some of the timelines on the facilities master plan, additional funding that might be necessary for that, and just how it's keying in with the strategic infrastructure renewal plan.
Thanks, Councillor Appleton. Go ahead, Mr. Haran.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Through you, we're in the early stages of that project. It's in the financial plan, 2 phases, funded 50,000 this year and 50,000 next year. And I'm in the really initial, even pre-project charter stage of this project, trying to define what the scope of the master plan project will actually be. So whether it will be half that cost or the full amount, or whether we need something else. So at the moment, it's just around consolidating what our facilities are, trying to get an up-to-date status and information for ourselves here about what the funding revenue streams for each one are. Like, are they self-sustaining, for example, or do they require funding through taxes or reserves and that kind of thing, to try to establish the long-term renewal plans for those and asset values. So it really is initial activities. But we are going to be able to use this work in the next month or so to input or to influence the strategic infrastructure renewal plan in terms of our best information and more actionable from the reports that we received back in 2016. So we're in early stages. I am hoping, though, to be able to get some later, either this year or next year, something that I can bring back to the council table to say, here's what we found in our master plan work and what it means in the big picture.
Thank you, Mr. Horan.
Thank you, Your Worship. Maybe just for a quick follow-up. So then what I'm hearing then is that there's enough information potentially in what we'll be able to gather in the next little while, plus some existing documentation, that there'll be that the strategic infrastructure renewal plan will at least be informed in part or will contain content with respect to the facilities master planning project, but potentially subject to probably revisions in the future. Do I have that right?
Mr. Horan.
Through the chair, absolutely correct. And I think that's true for every asset class will have a different level of maturity or precision in terms of the estimates. So there will be, for example, our fleet plan was probably more solid and to put together, because we understand exactly which vehicles we have. We've been doing this kind of asset management for decades, so we're much more mature in our ability to understand in 10 years which vehicles we need to replace and how much they're probably going to cost and those kinds of things. Some of the other areas we don't have as much information. For facilities, we have a pretty good idea, and what we're going to do is it will be a bit more refined and actionable than what we saw back in 2016. So I think we will have a better than we've had before view of the whole asset program of when we do this strategic infrastructure plan here in the end of Q3.
Thank you, Mr. Horan. Councillor Appleton.
Yeah, if I can just continue, Your Worship. Thank you for that. I guess I have a similar question, just as far as timelines and some council touch points with respect to the transportation master plan. And I know it has a bunch of moving parts to it that may arrive at different junctures. I was just wondering whether Director Horan could sort of elaborate on that one a little bit.
Oh, go ahead, Mr. Horan.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Through you, I would say the transportation master plan as a name is probably better used as a description to lump in a group of different projects that all kind of belong to the same family. It's less fleshed out, and I think part of the reason that is because often traditional transportation master plans are expensive and long and aren't necessarily actionable. So we have a number of activities which are in the capital program in terms of specifics, which we believe will help us move in the direction of being able to make some positive transportation related improvements. And that's just not, that includes active transportation, it includes pedestrian safety, it includes transportation safety. So all of those things will help us make progress in the short term. But I think that probably within a few years, there will be a need to have a bigger picture thing that probably looks more traditionally like a master plan. But I don't believe that we need that just yet. We need to get some shovel ready projects for next year and the year after, and that's our big focus at the moment.
Thank you, Mr. Horan. Go ahead, Councillor Appleton.
Thank you, Your Worship. So just one final question with regards to the strategic infrastructure renewal plan. As per some of the correspondence received and also my own personal interest, I'm just wondering how the strategic plan will incorporate climate change impacts and whether or not that's considered in that content.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Horan.
I think that the climate change impacts are lumped into the technical master plans that we do. Well, there's a number of places where it'll be lumped into, but it's definitely something that is part of our thinking for all of our planning. So fundamentally, the stormwater master plan is the place where we'll see that most significantly, because you make long-term 20, 50, 60, 70-year planning activities in terms of capacity, and often it's done in terms of if it's water, for example, do you have a growth in your community plan for those folks that aren't surrounded by water in other communities? And you have to factor in the potential development. And so for stormwater, you're also factoring what are the expectations around climate change, so that our ability to handle the storms of increasing intensity, duration, and frequency. Trying to figure out what our levels of service should be as those changes happen. It just falls right squarely into the hands of the Stormwater Master Plan. I think that the Strategic Infrastructure Renewal Plan will have enough information around Stormwater Master Plan, will be based on age and material of the mains that currently exist, and probably won't have as close to the information that we require in terms of capacity upgrades. But it's a fairly complicated issue, and it's probably good enough for what we need now to set the municipality heading in the right direction. But I think I'll say one more thing. Definitely, it's a question. It's an unanswered question that we need to do some more work on as time goes forward.
Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you,
Horan.
Worship. Thank you, Mr. Horan.
Thank you, Councillor Appleton. I am going to go to Councillor Green and then Zelka next, but I just express my appreciation for raising the question. I think the facilities piece is one, that has been included here as part of our overall piece. And I noticed in other municipalities, even who have more advanced underground asset management plans, have often lagged in that facilities piece. So it's obviously very high cost for replacement and very important to strategically apply good maintenance and pieces. So I think it's really appreciative of Councillor Appleton of raising it here and of staff including it in their asset management plan from the beginning on this front. So go ahead, Councillor Green.
Well, thank you very much. I don't really have any questions. I just want to thank Mr. Horan for the detail in the report. And his reports, what I like about his reports and his approach is that he gives us the good, the bad, and the ugly. And he actually works in the ugly. I mean, these are not glamorous assets that we're talking about, but they underpin everything else we do in this municipality. As others have pointed out, they touch on transportation, on building and planning, on development. Infrastructure is, it keeps us moving, it, provides safe passage and so on. So I really appreciate the amount of time he takes. And, we are playing catch up. I mean, it's been years and years of, I guess, what we call deferred maintenance. And I know the community is very concerned about it, both from a cost potential point of view, but also from a safety and public health point of view. So it's a really important area, but it's not a glamorous one. And I appreciate the work that's being done. So thank you very much, Mr. Horan. And it isn't my area of expertise, but I always appreciate what you have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Green. Go ahead, Councillor Zelka.
Thank you, Chair. Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Oh, great. Apologies, I had to pop out of the meeting briefly, but I'm back in. So, and apologies if this has already been asked about, but I wanted to touch upon the natural assets master plan. There's been so many wonderful segues, and from what I've been hearing, with respect to the environment, with respect to the good, the bad, and the ugly. Speaking of the good, I'm so glad to hear that the water aspect has been moved forward first and is basically complete. The water that comes out of our taps is so important, and I would call that the good. But with respect to segueing over to the natural assets master aspect, each of these plans, I imagine, are not unlike spheres that in some ways overlap a bit like a Venn diagram. I see natural assets plan is to be determined. I'm wondering, is it to be determined because some of those other spheres are so comprehensive that they actually take into account many of the natural assets that we're trying to be looking at, or is there another reason why it's to be determined, please?
Thank you, Councillor Zelka. Mr. Horan, I believe we just made a motion to bring this to our strategic planning, but perhaps you can give us a little bit of history of the natural asset model.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. When we started putting together the asset management program and tried to establish what do we think this, what are we going to cover here, I think that we were trying to incorporate the idea that the natural assets, things like the Bowker Creek watershed, the foreshore, the urban forest, and a number of other examples that could probably be added into that group. Other communities, it's things like aquifers and things that have natural, environmental, I'll call assets, I guess the term is, that have value to the community, but aren't necessarily treated in some places like infrastructure, in terms of local governments don't assign a value to them and don't necessarily have a plan in place for the long term to sustain them, to maintain them, to protect them, and those kinds of things. So we thought that it would be something to put into the program to say, well, is that what Oak Bay wants to do for? And that's why it was initially a to be determined. Right now, it's to be determined because I think what I've heard in terms of this council table is that it sounds like a good approach for the district. And now we need to figure out, well, what does it look like? And there aren't a lot of examples out there of what where we could go and say, well, we'll just do what this other community has done. So what we're going to try to do, at least in the short term, is use the direction that you gave after the discussions about the Bowker Creek watershed, and use that to come back to the strategic priorities discussion to say, well, here is a potential change in level of service to start dealing with natural assets as an asset that we weren't necessarily assigning resources to in the past, and see how the community through the council likes that approach and seek some direction on that, and then incorporate some of the foreshore aspects and some of the other natural assets into that plan going forward. So we're really trying to figure it out as we go along, and doing something new, but we're not alone in trying to forge some new ground or head in a path that no one has headed down yet.
That's great. I look forward to yeah, thank you. I look forward to our continuing discussion in this area. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. I don't, Councilor Green, your hand is still raised officially, but you spoke last, so I'm assuming it's just lingering. Is there any other questions of staff at this point? Okay, thank you very much. And I don't have, I think everybody's covered any questions I might have had pretty thoroughly here. I'll just, express, maybe we'll get a motion to receive the report at this point. Moved and seconded. Thank you. See, Councilor Patterson, you have your hand up for a second time. Do you wish to speak?
No, I was just going to move the
okay.
that we receive the report. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. And I don't have much to add, but I do want to express my appreciation for this report and for all the work staff is doing. It is decades of backlog of work, and I think I'm going to give credit to council here. Previous councils for starting the process, and this council, frankly, for saying we need to raise taxes and fund it. Even before we have all the detailed planning in place, we know we're going to need the money, and we're going to fund both the, get our funding up to a level close to where it needs to be. We know some idea of that, and to fund staff to go ahead and do this work. And I'm very appreciative of council taking that on. So good work, all of you, and to staff for running with this with such enthusiasm. I know it can feel slow at times, but it's also, it's a huge amount of work, and the cost of doing it wrong or mistiming it is also incredibly high. So we have to be supportive of that careful approach as well. So that's all I have to say on this matter. Thank you very much. Anything else that anybody else on this? All right, I will call the question then. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed? That carries. Thank you, Mr. Horan. And with that, we are ready to adjourn. See a motion to adjourn. Moved, seconded. All those in favor? Any opposed? Not opposed? We'll see some of you very soon, and we'll talk to you a bit later. Cheers.